So Batman Arkham Knight is the third and final part of Rocksteady's Batman Arkham trilogy, and just right there, this game has a lot to live up to. I had high hopes for this game. It's pretty much like the most anticipated game for me of this year, but I don't really get games, so that's not really saying too much. But I was really looking forward to this game, so does it deliver? More or less, yes, it does deliver quite a bit. Talking about the positives first off, the open world is a lot bigger than the other games. It's really big, it's stunning, there's lots of places to go, lots of hidden areas, and it's just really fun to just fly around the city and just explore, which is why I love these kind of games. Getting into the gameplay though, this game is more or less similar, but also kind of different from the other Arkham games. And by that I mean, for example, the gliding. I think the gliding's been pretty much the best gameplay improvement from the previous games, because in the previous games, when you glide, you just like continuously go down like that. But in this game, you can actually just glide through buildings, and you actually feel like you're gliding, or at least flying sometimes. So the gliding, it's similar in terms of the controls and sometimes some of the movements, but it's been improved by the maneuverability of the gliding. And the combat feels familiar as well in terms of, obviously, again, the moves and some of the things you can do, but it does feel like there's more of a fluidity to it. It feels more fluid, and it feels more just like jumping back and forth between enemies and just kicking the hell out of them. So the gameplay, similarly different. That's what I'm going to say. It might not make sense, but that's what it is. Next, the voice work was top notch in this game. Kevin Conroy, great as Batman. I only found this out a few days ago as well. Jonathan Banks, the voice of Jim Gordon, really good job as well. John Noble, the guy from Lord of the Rings 3, he does Scarecrow, really good job as Scarecrow. There's also Troy Baker, voices the Arkham Knight, he did a really good job as Arkham Knight, and as Two-Face as well. And there's also another mystery voice in there, which I'm not going to say, but he did an awesome job, probably the best job of the whole game, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. You probably know who it is by now, because if you're watching this, you probably already completed it, but if you know what I'm on about, yeah, he was the best in the game. Let's get into the story of this game. The story is pretty awesome. I do think Arkham City has a better story than Arkham Knight, but Arkham Knight has a good story for a finale for the trilogy. Batman has to go after Scarecrow, he's threatening to release his fear toxin, but also has to confront this mysterious Arkham Knight character who's just showed up on the scene. And right there, this story had me hooked on the intrigue of the Arkham Knight, because when I first heard about the Arkham Knight, I was like, there is no way this is going to be an original character. I just knew from straight from the start that he was going to be a pre-existing Batman character, and he's going to have some kind of tie to Batman, and I knew there was going to be some kind of big reveal and plot twist, but I'm not going to tell you what it is in case you haven't played it, but I'm just saying that he's not an original character. That's all I'm going to say. But I did like the Arkham Knight. I liked how he dressed. He's like a military version of Batman. He has like the bat ears and stuff, but he also has a cool helmet that's like a screen on his face and has all this data on his face. It's pretty cool, but he's got a cool voice, which I'm not going to imitate because I can't imitate voices that well. But yeah, it was pretty cool. But one thing I do have to mention is there are some quite emotional moments in this game. There's parts of this game where Batman just breaks down after something happens. He just like, that's rough. But also, there are some really great moments in this game. There's just parts in this game where you're just watching it. You have to play something while something's happening, and you're just like, that's just funny, but it's just awesome. It's some of the moments that people consider to be some of the most iconic of the Arkham trilogy, and it's just really great stuff. Now, one of the most dividing things about this game is the inclusion of the Batmobile. A lot of people are saying it feels out of place. Some people say it's good, and some people say it's bad. Personally, I think the Batmobile is a fun addition to the game. You can't exactly play with the Batmobile and not say you can't have fun while you're playing with the Batmobile, because it's awesome to just drive around and just explore Gotham. The battle mode, you get into battle mode, it turns into a bat tank and you can just blow stuff up. You're pretty much fighting drawn tanks with nobody in them, so you're not really killing people because Batman doesn't kill people, but the bat tank, Batmobile, whatever it's called, it is a fun addition to the game. However, as fun as I do think it was, I do think the game makes you use the Batmobile too much. And what I mean by that is there is lots of missions and lots of puzzle solving in this game which requires the Batmobile to do whatever. And one of the things I loved about the previous Arkham games, including Arkham Origins, was like the more going inside to these different buildings, exploring the buildings and taking dudes out, finding the people inside the buildings and doing that stuff. There is that in Arkham Knight, don't get me wrong, it's just there's more Batmobile blowing stuff up and pulling ledges down and puzzle solving than there was going into buildings getting people, and it's not really a letdown, it's just more of a nitpick I have. It's just I think the Batmobile, it's cool, it is fun to use, it's really entertaining to drive around and just blow tanks up, but it is a little bit overused, I do think. For example, I've completed the game about 89%. I've pretty much done all the missions and all the side missions apart from the Riddler challenges and all that stuff, so I've done all that. and I've had about 4 boss fights like towards the last end of the game, and 3 out of those 4 boss fights involve the Batmobile. You have to use the Batmobile to take out whoever, and I don't know, it's just, it takes away from the classic boss fights from the previous Arkham games, so it is a little bit of a that they use it too much, but it's still fun to use, don't get me wrong. And that's another unfortunate aspect I do have to bring up, is this game has a very big lack of boss fights, and what I mean by that is, you remember in like Arkham City, for example, you go through the game and you encounter loads of different villains. First you encounter Penguin, then you go to Two-Face, then you go to Joker, then you go to Mr. Freeze, then you go back to Penguin, then you go to Mr. Freeze again, then you go to Ra's al Ghul, then you go back to Joker, then you go to Hugo Strange, then to Ra's al Ghul, then to Joker again. Back and forth between these classic Batman villains. A few boss fights in there, like Mr. Freeze boss fight, Ra's al Ghul boss fight, Solomon Grundy boss fight, even in Arkham Origins as well. You had like Shiva boss fight, Bane boss fights and all that stuff. Really cool boss fights and that, but Arkham Knight, it's not like that, really. In terms of the actual story, I mean, you can go and hunt all the villains in the side quests and stuff, still they're not boss fights, but in the story there's just no boss fights. Apart from like the last third of the story. When you get to like the 70% mark, after that there are a few boss fights involving the Batmobile and all that stuff, and they were cool, but I just thought that the lack of like classic boss fights, like the Bane boss fight and all that stuff, I think it was very present in this game in terms of like you can notice that it's not there. For me it was anyway, and it kind of took away from the actual like structure. Like the boss fights kept the game like interesting, entertaining and moving, and just like all going along boss fight and all going along boss fight and all that stuff. This game just like going along fight for the first 70% of the story, and then a few boss fights at the end, and just I don't know, it was a kind of a disappointment of sorts that there was not that many boss fights in this game, and I did miss them, unfortunately. In terms of, if I have to pick a big negative with Arkham Knight, it would be the lack of boss fights. It'd be the biggest negative for me. But it's kind of made up in the last 30% of the story of this game, because like the big finale comes and it's just wow, it's just some really big heavy hitting stuff, and it's just some really deep and meaning kind of stuff at the end of this game, and you're just playing it, you're like, wow, this is just woof. Batman is more than just a vigilante hunting criminals. These criminals get into his head and they have an effect on him, and that was awesome to see. Another thing I haven't mentioned as well is dual play, and sometimes throughout the game you'll encounter something and then like another supporting character will come in, like Nightwing or Catwoman or Robin. They'll come in and you can fight a bunch of guys as both characters, and you can just press L1 and you can just seamlessly switch between the characters, even doing a takedown sometimes, which is pretty awesome. So I love the dual play. There's especially one sequence which I won't spoil. There's one sequence where you're actually going through a building trying to pick off guys, and you're actually, Batman's with someone else, and you can just switch between them at any time, and it's like a normal like mission. You're just going through and you're just trying to take guys out as part of the story, and I thought that was really awesome. So in the end, Batman Arkham Knight, I was so happy with this game. The gameplay was awesome. It was familiar sometimes but different. I don't know, that's how I'm describing it. The story was good, the characters were good, the plot twists were they were okay, but I didn't expect them, so there is that. There's a lot of side quests to do, Riddler trophies and all that stuff. There's a good variety of villains in the game in terms of like Batman villains and all that stuff. But yeah, the boss fights, not present. I did miss the boss fights in the game. Batmobile, really fun, but again, I do think it's a little bit overused. If they just cut back on the Batmobile missions and had more going into buildings and getting guys missions, I would have been more satisfied. But in the end, I did really like Arkham Knight. I liked it a lot. And I'm going to give Batman Arkham Knight a 4 out of 5. Now here's the big question, comparing Arkham Knight to the rest of the series. Now this is going to be tough. Arkham Knight is definitely better than Arkham Origins, I will say that. But I do think Arkham City is better than Arkham Knight overall, because there's just more variety in Arkham City, I think, in terms of like, obviously the villains, all the boss fights, and I think the story was a lot better as well. And the one thing I'm debating about is whether or not Arkham Knight is better than Arkham Asylum. That's the one I'm debating right now, so I'll get back to you on that one. So guys, thanks for watching the video. I'm glad I can do a game review for once, because I'm always doing movie reviews and all that stuff, but I'm glad I can do games for once. But my question is, first of all, do you want me to do a spoiler video on Arkham Knight in terms of the actual story and what I thought of all the twists in the game? So if you want a spoiler video, tell me in the comments below. And also what you thought of Batman Arkham Knight, tell me in the comments. And as always, if you like this stuff, you want to see more of my stuff, be sure to subscribe, so I got stuff coming to you guys all the time.